we've become good friends with many of the local partner forces here in Malaysia because we've been working with them for years now. In fact,
Yeah.
that's who we keep working with, though they're not our client, but that's who we keep seeing, and we've we have a good relationship with them.
Welcome to Motion Matters, where we shine a light on the entrepreneurial journey, sharing real stories of triumph and challenge. Guided by Jamie Tilka, we connect, inspire, and educate. This is Motion Matters.
Hello and welcome to Motion Matters, the entrepreneurial podcast where we talk to people about their entrepreneurial journeys, the trials and tribulations, and peel back the layers and have real, open, honest, raw discussions about both the good and the ugly of what it means to be an entrepreneur. Today, I have a very, very, very special guest. His name is Royce Tai. A little bit of background about how I met Royce. So while serving overseas in Malaysia, I was there for an extended amount of time, and one time I rented an Uber, and this guy named Royce picks me up. Loved his customer service, and so I said, "Hey man, can I hire you back?" And he said, "Yeah." Got his personal contact, started using him consistently to help take me in and around Malaysia. One thing led to another. Found out that he had a unique situation that he was experiencing, contemplating entrepreneurship in its full capacity. And then I went on one of my little soapbox things. So that's why I'm super excited to have Royce on today. He's got an incredible story coming all the way from Malaysia. I'd like to introduce Royce Tai. How are you doing?
I'm great. Good to be here with you, Jamie.
Awesome. Thank you for taking the time. We're half the world apart and half the time zone apart. So I really appreciate you staying up until the wee hours to do this. I'd like to kick it off. I gave everybody a little background on how we met. And so if you could just go a little bit deeper and talk to everybody for just a few minutes, what was your background and how it kind of led up to that moment where you transitioned into this entrepreneurship that you currently have going.
I grew up always wanting to be an entrepreneur. I sold popsicles at school, and then I went on to college at Hawaii, where I knew I wanted to be a businessman, an entrepreneur in the future. But in order to do that, I knew I needed to do my accountings as well to understand how the flow and everything behind the scene. So I double majored accounting and finance. And then I came back after graduating. I got a job out of Albuquerque with a chemical logistics company. Was with the company for about 6 years. And then company had me working in Asia to the point where one of the biggest client that we had in Asia was bought over, which ultimately led to the company I was working with having to shut its business down in Asia, which then had me looking for another job temporarily, trying to do Uber as, to supplement income. And one thing you missed out, Jamie, is I met you for the first time. It was it was a 5 minutes ride, I remember. But the amazing thing was it never happened with any other customer, but you were the only guy who I picked up the second time within the same week, which was so mind blowing the way it all happened. And then you led me to meeting you, and then I could tell that you were fascinated that I spoke English in a certain accent, had this degree from the States, and you introduced me to a new world, the world of contracting.
Yeah, you're right. Absolutely. I was super intrigued because, well, first of all, having lived in Asia for the better part of 15 years and speaking multiple languages within there, I, I like languages, and I was listening to your accent. And I was like, man, this guy's English is a little bit too good to have never gone overseas. And that's when you kind of were like, yeah, well, I went to school in America. And I was like, what? And then that's kind of where the conversation took off. So awesome. So let's go back to that moment where okay, so you had fallen out of that, that opportunity, that job that you were working, and you had entrepreneurial aspirations. And kind of during that discussion that we had, what do you feel like was the thing that clicked that made you just say, you know what, I'm going to do this?
So it's the mindset that I've always had, which is I don't really believe in luck itself as a magical thing. To me, luck is an equation of you being prepared and an opportunity coming up. That's it. And for me, I whatever I'm doing, whatever the opportunity you gave me, I had been prepared. You didn't know that, and I didn't know about this opportunity that you were gonna give me. But whenever I look back, it was these two things: being prepared and having this opportunity show up, and going with it because it was an opportunity which I had no idea what the world of military is about, the world of contracting is about. But I knew I wouldn't want to say no. I knew I would just go ahead and learn and just go do it.
Well, you know what? I don't, when we do the podcast, like I want to definitely maximize the time for you to speak because I want you to share your story. But I want to take a little bit of an opportunity right here. I know that we're both spiritual people. I know we believe in God, and I believe it was divine intervention. Like you
Oh,
said, for me to have been in your
absolutely,
car, yeah, for me to
absolutely.
have been in the car. Here's the other thing that's amazing about that situation that I think you know this, but I'm just refreshing people's memory that may have never heard this story before. And that is at that particular time, part of what I was doing over there was facilitating military contracting for other organizations that were coming in to work with Malaysian counterparts. And at that particular time, although there was other options, some of those options were becoming more and more difficult. People were exponentially raising their prices, some price gouging, and obviously that was causing issues on the contracting side for the military. It's like, we needed certain needed to meet certain requirements, and it was becoming more challenging. And then here I am talking to you, and you're telling me your story, and something in my brain clicked at that moment, right? Again, all divine intervention, and I remember asking you, I was like, hey, I can't remember what the item was specifically, but I said, if you had to go out and resource 20 washing machines right now, could you do that? And you're like, yeah.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
I was like, what about, could you go and get 10 cars? Could you get 10 cars? And you're like,
Yep.
yeah. And then that's when I was like, Royce, man, listen to me. You have to get into the military contracting. You're a great person. Your customer service has been, nothing but exceptional in the time. And that's you serving as an Uber driver, right? But you were pleasant to speak with. You were courteous. You knew when I was trying to take care of something that on the phone and stuff, you didn't interrupt me. And so I was like, man, I would love to connect this guy because we needed quality service providers, right? Good, ethical, moral people. And here I am meeting with you. And so that's kind of how that whole moment came to be.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's definitely divine intervention. I what I was doing at that time was I was putting my faith in God and telling him that I'm going to do everything I can to provide for my family. I'll humble myself. I'll be an Uber driver, whatever it is, because I needed to find a legal way to make sure I'm feeding my family because my kids are still young. I can't just wait for something to just fall on my laps without doing anything. It's faith without works. So I was putting in the work, and you showed up.
Dude, I love what you just said, faith without works. Like, I hope people that are listening to this right now, are contextually taking in what that means. You can sit there, but if you're not willing to do the work, I mean, it says repeatedly in the Bible,
Hmm.
you have to work,
Hmm.
you know? So let's transition to the point like, okay, we had the introduction, the light bulb moment. Royce, you'd be the perfect guy. I went out and did my thing, talked to my military counterparts or government counterparts, said, hey, I got this guy. I think he would be a great service provider. Can we test him out? So then all of a sudden I connect you, and then you get thrown in the lion's den because you're going from providing somebody a ride here and there and maybe something of service here and there to now I have to scale exponentially. Like, how overwhelming was that for you in that moment?
Oh man, it was overwhelming in different ways because I remember looking at the first contracting RFQ, and the list of items that they needed in there was 95% things I've never seen or even heard of them before. A generator for the plane. I've never dealt with things like this before. But that was one learning curve. And then the other learning curve was contracting is about bidding. How do I price this? I didn't
Hmm.
know how to price this, but I knew I needed to pay the price of learning. So whatever the process it took me a few rounds before I finally slowly can understand where the sweet spot is for bidding and pricing for contracting. Yeah, it was overwhelming at first. That was true.
Let's go one more layer deeper. Let's talk about the airplane generator. So at that point, you're like, holy crap, I got to provide this service. They just said
Mhm.
yes. What'd you do from there?
So actually, that one, I had to go and figure this out. Number one, what is this thing even? And then finding out where do I source this thing, because it's not something that you get on a daily basis or you find in a shop. So it was making a lot of calls and trying to connect with people from different places and trying to say, hey, I'm doing this. So one of the barrier of entry is when you're nobody, you're basically nobody. Nobody's known you. To number one, even supply to you is something that doesn't come easily because
Mm.
they don't know who you are. They don't have you haven't built your credibility with certain people, certain company. So those processes were tough at first, but I knew I had to tough it up and just keep going. So the learning took a while, a few months, few contracting. In fact, I didn't actually win the first few contractings. Uh, but the good thing is people were willing to help where they can, whether it's the contracting officer giving me the final price of whoever else won the contract. So at least I know, oh, okay, that's where the pricing is should be next time. But yeah, it was
Yeah.
good learning
Well,
process.
yeah. Well, think about your resiliency, and the word that we like to say in entrepreneur is consistency, right? Because 99% of what you're going to do, nobody's going to return that overnight. You're not going to become the best supplier overnight. You're going to become the best artist overnight. You're not going to become the best of whatever it is overnight. It's just not going to happen.
Oh.
And so what I'm listening to you tell your story, and I'm saying to myself, listen to this guy got shot down again and again, but he said, what can I do to present it better next time? And this is, so I talk to people all the time and I say, listen, are you or are you not willing to jump off the proverbial cliff in order to be able to take the leap of faith? That's number one. The second problem is, if you all of a sudden are swimming in the waters and you feel something at your legs, are you going to go back to shore, or are you going to remain calm in the moment and kind of assess the situation? And when I'm listening to you, I'm saying, Royce, assess the situation. What do I need to shift? What do I need to adapt? And how do I get there? And I think that's also because you wouldn't be sitting here right now. I mean, you've texted me privately and said, thank you. This has provided a great opportunity. And I'm not saying it because I want the credit. What I'm saying is, yes, I helped connect the dots for you, but you had to do all the work. And if you weren't willing to do the work, you wouldn't be here, serving in the capacity that you are today. And if I understand correctly, you're definitely one of the consistent providers to the United States government when people are traveling overseas to Malaysia, correct?
Correct. So in fact, we do both Malaysia and Thailand now. So
My.
so you do deserve all the credit, Jamie, because I could be prepared with all this knowledge, all this money that let's say situation were different. Let's say I had a company, I had money to fund the company. But if you didn't make the connection, I would have never known about the connection. Because number one, I'm not an ex-military. Number two, I'm not even an American. So to go and knock the door at the US embassy and say, hey, you know what? I'm here to provide service. Let me do that. No way that would have happened. You connected the
Well,
dots.
I thank you for that, but I know both of you and me agree 100%. And I just, for the sake of where credit's really due, is obviously God connected us.
Yeah,
I would love
yeah,
to believe that it
yeah.
was me and my own, but again, those circumstances in which we met and aligned, the stars aligned, were not happenstance. So
I agree.
I'm super happy for you, man. I'm super excited for the future, and so I want to ask you just a little bit more. Again, kind of the emphasis of the show is really kind of talking. Tell me about, other than that, so we talked about the initial struggle of being overwhelmed and figuring out the system, right? So after you got the wheels up and off the ground and you're, flying away, tell me of a situation that you kind of were presented, and it can be personal or it can be business, in which like it really started making you question, is this really what I want to do? Is the sacrifices that I'm doing in order to build what it is it worth it? Tell me about one of those. Do you have something you can think of?
Oh, I definitely do. Because, well, one thing with working with the U.S. military is I have to be extremely flexible. I have to be extremely patient as well, because I always picture myself. It's my company is a small end, but I'm servicing this huge, this big giant here. So
Mm.
I I need to know how to fit myself so that I can work around the military and the government. So I still remember back in 2019 when there was a CRIFEX here, and it was almost 2 weeks, but the action was about 4 to 5 days, and we were constantly on standby. The way the CRIFEX works, and I think I was lucky if I had 3 to 4 hours sleep each day. I
Mm.
probably ate one meal a day. I literally can pull it up on my phone where it will show you in that 1 week I lost 5 kilograms. Like it
Oh,
just went away. It was intense. It was intense. Um, it took a lot of putting aside my personal feelings to understand that this is a mission that I'm supposed to help support. That is my role. That is my organization's purpose. Um, it was high pressure, but at the end, obviously high reward because you help see the mission through. Um, I mean, you get paid as well. That's the bonus as well. So yeah,
yeah.
that's definitely one of the experience. But there's many, but that's one that I can think of.
Yeah, no, I love it. I mean, again, you're talking about sleep deprivation. And so in those moments of trials, what do you feel like is the number one driving factor for you when you're sitting there reflecting on the moment? I mean, I've been in some situations where I'm literally asking me, what the hell am I doing this for? And so I'm saying in those moments, like, what's the first thing that typically comes to the top of your mind?
There's two ways to look at this. One, I look at it as my family needs me to be at my best because I'm a
Mm.
provider. I gotta provide for the family. I want to make sure my family is taken care of. And the other way to look at this is from a business perspective. I want to be the best. I do not want to give anyone the opportunity to take away that spot from me. I want to always be the one that people think of as the reliable one, the capable one. At the same time, not doing like crazy high pricing. What we believe is we want to provide value, and providing value includes, sometimes sleep deprivation, sometimes not getting enough meals because you want to assist. Because our role is to assist and support, and that's how I look at it to help me keep going.
Yeah, I love the part about the family, and I had a sneaky suspicion that that was probably going to be your response, because it is for many of us, right? As a provider, everybody wants to give their family the comfort and security, right, and be financially stable enough, and then on top of that, afford some of the opportunities that I know that you've been able to have with your family. It's always one of those balances when you have this kind of discussion because sometimes people are like, "Oh, well, you're all about the materialistic items." No, no, no. But do I want to have that experience for my family? Then yes, and I want to be able to know that they're going to eat tomorrow. Yes, 100,000%.
Yeah.
So I love that you shared that point.
I mean, at the same time too, I don't see anything wrong with the material as well because um, as long as we understand proper balance and understanding that, okay, I'm not going to start only focusing on, let's say, the money and then putting my family aside. I'll take for example, I do yoga, and if I was to do yoga all day long, it's a healthy thing, yes, but if I was to do yoga and put aside time with my family, put aside working time, that's not proper balance then, even though yoga is a
Mm.
good thing. So same thing with money, or things that you need, which is money to survive, money to go and travel, money to put your kids to school. It's the right finding the right balance. And then again, material, nothing wrong with that. Kids go out and see other things in the world. But you want to give them that
Yeah,
kind of opportunity.
yeah, that's amazing. Let's talk a little bit more about the growth that you've had. So we were riding in the Uber. It was you. It was no one. So
Mm.
I'm assuming that you either have a team now, or you probably have a team plus additional third party resources. Just give me like a little outline of what today's business looks like, your business structure looks like for Royce.
Yeah. So when the opportunity kicked off, I immediately needed to build a team. At first, it was a team of civilians, people who I knew that okay, they could do this, do that. But it took me about a year-ish when I started to figure out, like, it was a light bulb moment that I needed to hire veterans. I needed to hire guys who are retired from the
Mm.
military, who understand the nature of the beast. Because when it comes to dealing with the military, like I said, number one is learning to be flexible. And regular guys, it's tough for you to tell them, hey, we made it, we're going to do this today, and then the next thing, no, that got changed to tomorrow. Whereas working with whereas working with veterans, yeah, there's almost never been an issue because they understand, because that's what they've been doing 20 years of their life. And on top
Mm.
of that, my guys, they love what they do, because for them it's coming back and getting in touch in a way with what they used to do. So like right now we have teams working out in Pascal, like the Navy SEALs of Malaysia. My guys
Hmm.
are mostly Pascal, retired Pascal. So for them, going back into the base, they're like, hey, I know this guy, I know how to do this, I know where to go. So uh, expertise, they already know what needs to be done. And so my team comprises of mostly retired Pascals. We do work with other third party as well, with different companies to supply different things. But personally, I love my Pascal guys. And they've been the best to work with, and they
Yeah.
enjoy the work.
You touched on something that made me think about something I would love to ask you. So if we were sitting in an open, a live in person forum, and somebody raised their hand right now and said to you, Mr. Royce, my question to you is based on your revelation of understanding the importance of what those veterans people can bring to building your business. How important do you think that relationship capital is in building your entrepreneur, your small business?
It's extremely important. And where the position I sit in this business, the relationship goes many different angles. Relationship
Mm.
with my team, so that they are constantly happy with what they need to do. They are constantly engaged with opportunities. And then there's the relationship with the client. And then dealing with the client, there is constantly different teams coming through. So then different teams have different mannerism. Different teams have different requirements. So some teams have really high requirements. Some teams have okay requirements. So it's a lot of learning people and understanding how best to get them satisfied, how best to provide what they need, and if when we can, and hopefully always, is to go above and beyond what they need. So the contract may say we want A to G, but we try to do above, beyond G as well. And that could be as simple as having a positive attitude when we're around, like our drivers. Maybe their job is just to go from A to B. Yeah, anybody can do that. But my guys provide happiness. They're constantly positive at work. They dress well. They are not late for work. They are always there on schedule. So it's finding out how best to provide value with every
Yeah.
relationship.
No, man, that's so important. In fact, you know, in special operations, we consistently would say, be good at the basics, right? And then you can be uh, exceptional at the bigger things that you come. And so when you talk about good customer service, it's something that I talk about all the time. And here in the United States, it may ruffle some people's feathers, but I said I feel like in many instances here in the US, like a lot of the customer service has gone by the wayside. You're exactly right. Like, I mean, one of the reasons why we connected, again, from all the other things we've already said, but you were pleasant to speak with, right? And I was like, okay, like I'm enjoying this conversation. versus when you come up to, you know, a typical counter in a retail space or something like that, and somebody's like, "Can I help?"
Yeah.
And you're just like, "All right, I don't even want to be here now."
The word that always comes to mind is ownership. I keep telling my guys too. I say, guys, take ownership of what you do. Just imagine if this was your client, your direct client, and if they have a bad relationship, they're not gonna want you anymore, and they never want to work with our company anymore. If they don't want to work with you, that means they don't want to work with the company. So take ownership, and and almost treat every day like the first day, where you are enthusiastic, you are excited. Don't treat this as something you've been doing 50 years and you're sick and tired of it. Don't be like that. If that's how you're feeling, let's figure it out, or best maybe you go separate way. But every guy on our team knows, work like it's your first day. Keep that enthusiasm, keep that excitement, keep that positivity.
Man, that again, that's a basic that's going to just propel and excel your business, and it's going to. I honestly, it's going to be a massive differentiator because a lot of people don't put emphasis on that anymore. Staying on the relationship, or not relationship, but staying on the topic of relationship capital, I have a, you know, real world experience and a really good understanding of what it means for somebody like you to have a good working relationship both with your local government and the U.S. government. So, but for the audience, could you just talk a little bit again about how integral a part? I mean, just to recapture so people listening understand, Royce provides goods and services for visiting host nation counterparts. Other countries coming in to work with host nation counterparts. My So how important is it for you to have a really? It's vital to have a relationship with both your local government officials at all different levels, whether that's sitting on the tarmac at the airport, or, you know, trying to get somebody through customs or whatever. Like, how important is that to your business?
For us, especially when working with the locals, it's important because the same face they're gonna see is us. Teams comes and go. The US team, there's always a new team, but
Hmm.
who they're gonna work with, it's us, and that's who the locals are gonna keep seeing with us, our team. So it's best that we are on our best behavior because we're going into their bases. So we're basically going into their homes. We want to make sure that we are following according to how it is when you go into people's homes, and always making sure that they know that, hey, we are also here to, we're here working as a support to the US, but at the same time, if there's any issue, anything we can help with, you may not be our client, but if there's something we can help with, let us know. And they've understood that, and we've become good friends with many of the local partner forces here in Malaysia because we've been working with them for years now. In fact,
Yeah,
that's who we keep working with, though they're not our client, but that's who we keep seeing, and we've we have a good relationship with them.
yeah, and those relationships spill over into personal. I don't
It
even have to
does.
ask you to know that I guarantee there's been multiple times throughout the past 10 years of your life. I mean, I think we met in 2015 or 2016, in
Hmm.
which you may have had to text somebody or call somebody because you knew that they knew something that you didn't, and you're like, "Hey, man, what should I do?" And that's probably yielded great return there as well. Would you say?
Yes, it's happened. Uh, it's come many different, not many, there's a few where, they've seen like, okay, DeckSCop does this for the US, and then and a situation came up with them where they needed something similar, and they knew, because they keep seeing us doing the same thing, they knew we could do it. And it's almost, I think it's almost like, if the US can trust Royce, we can too.
No.
I think
Yeah.
that's also the mentality.
No, that's great. I'm going to shift gears a little bit. One of the things that I talk about on this podcast is how much value having a mentor can be. I don't know the answer to this question. During your growth of this, has there been somebody that you've leaned on that's provided you with, you know, valuable insight that saved you weeks, if not months, of, you know, learning through your own trials?
I I, I didn't actually have one figure of a person that I can say, yeah, that's Uncle so and so. But one person that has been constantly there for me to bounce back, talk to, it's actually Melanie, my wife. What I also haven't shared with you, Jamie, was when you mentioned was it overwhelming to start the business? One of the part that was super overwhelming was the finances. As it is, I was already out of job for 6 months. Okay, paying mortgage and car was already tough as it is, which is why I was doing Uber. And then when it comes to contracting, you pay upfront. The government doesn't pay you first. You provide everything. At the end of the exercise, you put in your invoice, and then you wait another month before you get paid. But depending on the size of the exercise, it can be really big where you have to have
Yeah.
money upfront. My blessing has been Melanie. She has been my financial backer back then, because there was no way I could go to any bank and say I need a loan because I had nothing to show for. I never had a business record to show. I didn't have any financial statements that I can show them yet. But Melanie was there. Melanie was always, she works full time too. She's a financial auditor. My blessing was she was able to financially back me up. So mental wise, she's also the same person I go to if I'm having certain situations where I'm trying to think, how do I do this? If I'm stuck with something in my mind, it's Melanie.
That's amazing. And you're right. I did not know that piece of that story. And I'm actually glad you brought it up because it's another topic that often comes up, when I'm talking to aspiring entrepreneurs, which is, I can't do it because I have no money. I've told my story many times. I'm not going to repeat it. The snapshot is I was 6 figures in debt and I said, I want to become a real estate investor. And everybody's like, that's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
But in your circumstances, you had no credibility,
Mm-hmm.
both on paper and productivity wise, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then on top of that, you needed a substantial amount of money up front because you're right. I mean, some of the numbers that you're talking about are not small numbers at all,
Mm-hmm.
And so I tell people all of the time, in fact, I'm making it into a t-shirt and I say, trust times 2 equals money for you. If you trust the person and you trust the concept, then people are willing to give you the money. And in this case, fortunately for you, it was your wife. But she had to take a leap of faith too. I mean, she could have very easily said, Royce, I love you, but I'm not willing to risk, 5,000, 10,000, 20,000, whatever it was that she had to put up front.
Yeah, for her, because see, the thing is, I was dealing with the military. I was dealing with the business. Whereas Melanie, she didn't have to deal with the customers. She didn't have to be on the ground. So for her, it's what I'm telling her. She's not seeing it. It's what I'm telling her. I mean, she didn't think, oh, is she taking the money to go do other things? But fortunately enough, I've built enough credibility, not with the bank, but with my own wife, that she was willing and ready to help me to be my funder at the beginning.
We don't have enough time to go too deep into this right now, but as I was listening to you tell that, I'm saying to myself, that right there probably would have stopped 95 to 98% of people.
Mm-hmm.
It just would have.
Mm-hmm.
They would have said, there's no way I can come up with that money.
Mm-hmm.
And then they go back to work, back to Uber, back to, whatever your job is. And although it's your wife, I'm still sure to some point that was an uncomfortable conversation because you basically had to explain to her, hey man.
Oh yeah.
So how did that go?
I've never had in our marriage prior to that, never had to borrow money from Melanie or family member at all. I'm not one to borrow money. So this was my first business and I needed funding and I needed to go because with the exercise, once you get the award, it's just go from here. It's no stopping, no saying, hey, can I stop and go find money first? No. So I had explained to Melanie that what I was doing and I'm potentially going to need to borrow money from you. And she trusted me enough to say, go do it. And she let me have the money. And she knew I would pay her back. And I did. And I'm so glad she did that because you need money to make money in this business. If I didn't have the money and if I wasn't courageous enough to go find the money or borrow the money, then this wouldn't happen. So you need to be courageous. You need to humble yourself. In my case, I had to humble myself and ask my own wife for me to borrow money from her, and I'm glad she did.
I resonate with that. When I tell my story, I tell people, I said, I'm not telling you these numbers because I'm proud of it. It's quite embarrassing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why would somebody allow themselves to get six figures in debt? But the fact of the matter is that was my situation. And rather than saying, woe is me, the sky is falling.
Yeah.
I want to jump into victimhood.
Yeah.
I was like, how do I get out of here?
Yep.
And the only way to get out of there was to ask other people.
Yep.
To invest with me.
Yeah.
Man, I love it. I'm actually glad that you brought that up because I think that people need to hear that. I think the person that's listening to this podcast that wants to start a coffee shop, that wants to start a logistics company, in country X, you got to do what it takes to get it done. I'm sitting here looking at a sign that I typically have behind me. It says, in order to become the 1%, you must be willing to do what the 99% wouldn't do. And I consistently tell people, like, if you're not willing to do it, if you're not willing to take the risk, then, you have to be content with mediocrity or whatever, version of that is that lies inside your life.
I agree.
Awesome, man. Well, listen, I'm looking at the clock. I see that we've been on for a little while here. I'm going to start closing it down, but as kind of a departing thought, if you were sitting there having, a cup of coffee, or a tasty beverage or whatever it is that you enjoy, and you were talking to some aspiring entrepreneurs, is there one piece of advice that you would give them on why it's worth it to proceed?
So if I was to say to an entrepreneur who's aspiring to be an aspiring entrepreneur, I'd probably say that it's the ability to take control of your life, your livelihood. As an entrepreneur, I'm not bound to a fixed income anymore. I am now bound to how much I'm willing to work, how much I'm willing to put aside time to go out and execute certain things. It's now freedom. It's freedom to go out and control your life, your own life. And it's not something that you can get when you're doing a 9 to 5, because now you're working for someone, you're bound to their rules and regulations and bound to how much they pay you. Whereas as an entrepreneur, you control how much you get paid. I have this business. I could go out and do other business, and which then expands my income. So that's the beauty of being an entrepreneur.
Man, you nailed the key word. I was so happy that you said it, and that is freedom. When I'm going there and I'm having lunch with my wife in the middle of the day, sometimes I don't even say it, but in my head, I'm just thinking, couldn't do this if I was working back the way I used to. I mean, yeah, there's opportunities I could leave work, but then I have the stress of I have to get back at a certain time, or there's consequences,
Right.
Instead of being able to be fully engaged in that moment and enjoying that moment.
Exactly.
And to me, those are invaluable. I mean,
yeah,
man, yeah, I could go on and on. I won't. Royce, first of all, again, thank you for staying up and being a part of this podcast. We haven't been able to talk in forever. I'm so glad that we met that day. I'm so glad to hear your successes. I hope nothing but continued growth for you and your family. But before we leave, for anybody else that might be listening to this, that may be a need in Thailand or in Malaysia, how can they best get a hold of you? Like, what's your social media content, your email address, your website? Like, can you go ahead and line that out for us?
Yeah. So we have a Facebook and Instagram that we use. We have a website, but the Facebook and Instagram, look us up on DeckSCop. So Deck, like a ship's deck, and SC for supply chain, OP for operations. So DeckSCop, we're there on Facebook, Instagram. I'm notorious with WhatsApp. I'm almost always available. I can be reached there. People can contact us on WhatsApp or even on Messenger or an IG. But Jamie, I also want to thank you for this opportunity. I know I've said this many, many times, and I feel like I cannot say enough till the day I die. The opportunity that you gave me is one that that it can never be explained how it happened, except, like you said, divine intervention. Yet at the same time, divine intervention comes through us human beings, we as brothers and sisters to each other, unless someone shows up and gave you that opportunity. And in my case, it was you. And I cannot thank you enough for trusting me, Royce, like me. And you trusted me to introduce me to your world. And that changed my life, not just me, but my kids' life, my wife's life, our life, and the people that associate with me as well, the guys that work with me, my extended family. So what you did is something that I'll never be able to put into enough words to say how much I'm grateful for. And I think it's because you, an instrument of God, came into my life when I needed it the most. And I also wish you a ton of success in everything that you do. I mean, I knew you were different because the moment you walked in the car, the first night, I never forget this moment. Why I remember you was because you were this Caucasian guy who spoke fluent Mandarin. And then a few minutes later, I heard you on the phones also speaking Thai. So I knew you're no ordinary guy. And to see whatever you've done in Malaysia. So Jamie, I'm in Malaysia still. You left, but I'm still here. And I still see the things you've done. And I know the impact you have created here. It's still going. And to see the things that you're doing now is no surprise that you are continually going to be successful. And I hope that you continue to be successful. And I hope that your family is continually happy and growing healthy as well, Jamie.
Thanks, man. Camera's probably blocking it, I'm hoping, but you just got me all choked up, a little bit emotional. No, I appreciate that. I really do. The feeling's mutual, brother. I don't want to get all choked up, but no, thank you for that. I take that. It means a lot. It really does.
Yeah. Anyone who crosses paths with you, if they just take that opportunity to hear what you have to say. I mean, I don't know how big of an impact of a life-changing they would have like how I did, but I guarantee some way, some form, you have a way to make things work for people and change their life. I can just tell.
Yeah, I don't have words right now to express. All I can say is thank you. Thank you. Anyway, with that, I will let this go. I'm super excited. I will tell you this. My wife is planning a trip. We've texted about this. I did not realize you were fully integrated logistically in there. I can tell you right now, I'm texting you for all of her logistical needs. Because we're not going to sit there and buy or rent a car and stuff. So I'm going to call Royce and we're going to get her taken care of. But
awesome.
But anyway, thank you again. I'm super excited for you and everything. And yeah, just thank you and look forward to talking again in the future. All right, brother?
Likewise. Can't wait to see you over here.
All right. Take care, Royce.